I met a gypsy.
Like, you were kind of on the way back from that injury. How gnarly was that? Like, for people that don't know, and I guess I don't know, like, the full story. Like, that was pretty hectic.
Yeah, so that was pretty much 2 years of my life until I like kind of chunk it into like real short form. I had an off-road vehicle accident, so it was like a Can-Am that rolled, and one of my friends was driving it. We're just going down to the campsite at New Year's. It was like no cell service or out of phone signal. We were like 45 minutes from Cooma Hospital, which also wasn't a like trauma hospital, so they didn't have a lot of facilities like Canberra did. So it was like the scenario was like had a lot of parallels that could have gone really wrong. Had a bit of a surreal feeling, and my parents even that weekend was like, oh, we just had this weird feeling something's going to happen. But so going down this fire road, just chilling, like 40k an hour, not fast, but we're just like going back to the campsite, and my friend was driving, and like we both didn't have helmets on, both didn't have seatbelts. We're just like chilling. Anyway, she like clips this little tree stump, goes up an embankment, rolls it. So she falls out, and as I see us like hit the steering wheel, I put my arm out to support her, and she's driving. Anyway, she falls out, but then as I fall out, that instinct of being like an athlete and so many crashes over my career, like everything went slow-mo, and I was like, oh no. So luckily as it rolled, I fell out of the vehicle, but I could see the roll cage about to roll over me and crush me. So I turned my head, and luckily like the lights of the vehicle on top like broke my nose, but I managed to like catch the roll cage. I just remember this like feeling of like bench pressing as hard as I could. And so I grabbed the roll cage, it rolled over me, so I went under it. I had the entire weight of a vehicle on top of me through that one point. So where it sort of broke my sternum, and your sternum's like job is to protect all your organs. So where it broke my sternum, luckily I like just benched it, and I was like pushing as hard as I could, flipped on the two wheels. I remember getting up and being like, the feeling was when you cover your nose and you try breathe through like the smallest amount of air. It's like you're like, and you just have like this limited airway all the way in. But I knew straight away I must have punctured my lungs. Didn't know what that felt like. Never done it before. But you don't have a balloon, so you have nothing to breathe against. You don't have a wall anymore. So your air does this, and then it keeps going. It like doesn't come back. So you have this like constant winded feeling, and then you have this like limited air intake.
Because there's nothing to compress to squeeze it out.
Yeah, so I double punctured and collapsed both my lungs. I'd had what's called a pneumothorax in one. I'd punctured my heart wall lining. So my heart wall lining was bleeding out into my lungs. My lungs were also filling up. I had a full pneumothorax in one. I'd broken my sternum completely in half. I'd broken my nose, and we're 45 minutes from a rural hospital. And so in that moment, it was like wild. Like one of my friends, he like drove the car, and then I had another, like my best buddy, and I turned to him and I was like, something, and he'd done his lung before, so he knew straight away. He's like, what are you feeling? And I like explained, and he's like, all right. And I turned to him and I said, I'm not ready to die. Like I have so much that I want to achieve. I have so much I want to live for. Like it really was like people I've heard now, you make a choice. And for me, like it was a choice. I was like, nah, like I want to live. So he did a guided meditation for me for like 45 minutes. In 1, 2, out 1, 2, in 1, 2, out 1, 2. My mum doesn't know this, but luckily he was like pretty high at the time. So it was actually good. Like he was just tapped in to like in 1, 2,
he
out
just
1,
went
2.
in that mode.
Yeah, and honestly, like it saved my life. He's like one of my best friends. And I did this guided meditation, and I like got to the rural hospital, and then they like, you know, they start breathing for you and doing all the scans, and they're like calling Canberra, and it's New Year's Eve, and they're trying to get like an ambulance, and an ambulance wasn't there at the time. They can't lung drain me. So I was very fortunate. Then there goes another hour. Ambulance come back, then an hour from Canberra drive. So 4.5 hours I managed to like focus on only my breath, focus on not panicking, didn't go into cardiac arrest, didn't obviously die, got to the hospital, and then that was when they like did put a lung drain in. I then don't remember the next like 4 or 5 days in ICU, got stable again. You're just in and out of like, you know, they were 10 minutes from opening up for like heart surgery, but luckily like my heart had stopped bleeding. So it was like, yeah, they're putting tubes down my throat and like, it's like, you're still trying to breathe. So it's like, it was wild. Recovered from that, tried to have like a natural recovery for my sternum, didn't happen. Very high risk, like you're signing a dotted line of like 50% mortality rate for like if you get an infection in your sternum because it's like so close to your vital organs. They don't operate, so I had to actually go to California. Very unique, like no one in Australia would touch it. So I had to fly to America to get this surgery done. And luckily, San Diego, some great surgeons there. They're like, well, normal open heart surgery is vertical and they like wire your heart and sternum closed. So it's like, used to it, that's fine. But it was for mine, it was broken across parallel.
Oh, because of the way that the bars hit.
Yeah, so they didn't actually have like they didn't have like a plate or tools or bolts or wires or a way that was like, oh, we see this all the time, boulder up. Like, so the first plate broke, then went back into surgery, signed that dotted line again, 50% mortality rate, yep, lean in, let's go. Then the second bolt system was like long, and I knew within like 2 days I could hear the bolts backing out when I'd breathe. Because obviously it's not like you can't just throw a cast on an injury. It's like you can't cast your chest. You've got to breathe. Your rib cage has to expand. So
it has to move no matter what, like through the whole healing process.
Yeah. So it was very like, I was very fragile, like T-Rex. You can't lift your arms above your head. You can't wash your hair. You can't open doors. You can't lift like, more than a kilo. So you kind of like, everything is restricted. But basically, yeah, so then went back in for surgery for the third time. This was like 5 days after the second surgery. And they're like, third time lucky. I got 2 surgeons and they said, we're going to have to like cable your chest. So yeah, they basically like one surgeon like lifted my sternum up. They threaded wires between my heart and my sternum. They went back through all these existing bolt holes because at that point I had like 28 bolts in my holes in my chest from all the 2 prior surgeries. And they're like, all right, we're just going to like bolt it, grommet it down. We're going to put this X plate, which is like a bit more enforced. We're going to like plate that. So yeah, plate, screws, wires, and then it's a cartilage. So they're like, well, the cartilage will form around it and it's part of you forever. You don't take it out. So third time lucky, it finally healed. And the moment that I wanted to return to the bike was when they said, you can't withstand an injury like that ever again, unless it's the weight of a vehicle. So for me, I made peace with my bike. I was like, the bike can't hurt me. Like, that was just like such a freak one-off thing. And the other part was like, I wasn't necessarily healing. And then the point that I really started healing was when I shifted my mindset. I was so angry. It was like 3 surgeries. It's not healing. When I finally sort of said, like it saved my life. And I had like an appreciation for my sternum because I was like, it did its job. It protected my organs, protected my spinal cord. Like 2 centimeters up, I'd be dead. 2 centimeters down, I'd be dead. Like, here we are. Like, I just framed it differently and was like, it saved my life. And I like, maybe the spirituality side, like I had like a whole different like approach to my third surgery. And yeah, healed from that, returned for a bike. And my goal was get to an Olympic Games again because I was like, well, huge ambition. But I thought if my body is ready and I start, lifting 120 kilo squats and like building back to what you need to do to be an Olympic Games athlete, then I was like, if I don't make it, my body's strong again and I have options for the future. So that's really like a testament to like that 2 years of recovery to get back, miss out on Tokyo Olympics, but then go, all right, like let's dive into mountain biking and I'm fit and I'm healthy, I'm strong, and here we are.
That it's such a wild story, and I remember that time, like because we'd been talking about doing the podcast, and then I think that might have happened, and then we were talking about doing it like after, but that was a crazy time, and I was seeing like photos of X-rays with Sammy, and I was just like, "This is great, like crazy," like
they
you're
shot
like
a few photos when the surgeon's a bit more rogue in America, so Yeah, like I put up some pictures of like what the plate looked like in my chest, and it was like Superman, right? You just have this like, and like, just what's inside, just plates and screws and metal. But yeah,
It's so gnarly.
it's a part of me now. So I think it's different. Like I definitely have like a stiffer chest, and it means like it refers up. See a chiropractor a little bit more, get a bit more neck stiffness, but yeah, just have to really focus on my like nutrition and have less inflammation because I think
Yeah.
and actually, the most weirdest one was I couldn't ice bath after that. I just like the metal would get so cold in my chest that I'd get that bone bruise feeling and I'd freak out and I'd like, start hyperventilating. So that was a
Oh,
real reason I got an Odin ice bath. And I was like, well, trauma's like an onion. And if you peel back one layer at a time, you can get through it. And so I just like emerged myself to get better and better and better. And then I stopped being so reactive to that. It's like I think it is, yeah, you just strip back those trauma layers, and ice baths were like a big part of that, as well as starting to do some like MMA and boxing and reminding
yeah,
myself
sick.
like you're not broken, like you're okay. Get back on the front line, get back racing. Yeah.
If you enjoyed this content, please like and subscribe. And to listen to the full 3-hour podcast, search Gypsy Tales in your favorite podcast platform or click the link in the description below. Gypsy Gang.